Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tim Gillette, and we are back here with another episode of the Tim Gillette Show. Today's guest, all right, I really am going to get to know this person because they're from my hometown, home state anyway. And I did find that little bit about her. Other than that, she kind of looks like somebody who's not going to let me stress out anymore. I'm sure that story will come up as well. Anyway, I am looking forward to bringing this person on because, you know what I mean? She's not like the typical person I usually meet. Usually I meet these seasoned, older coaches. This is a young lady who's making big waves up on the East Coast. So let me bring her up here and see. First of all, I realize, is it Carlee?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you look at the name, the way it's spelled, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to mess this up.
And nope, very simple, Car and Lee, throw them together.
Carlee, yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I mean, my last name's Gillette. People cut it up all the time. Yeah. Carlee, you're coming in from Philadelphia. I know that much because I'm from Philadelphia area. All right, grew up there and stuff. And it's so good to have someone, a young lady like you on the show. And man, when I kind of did the peek on you, you've got quite a bit of accolades for what you're doing around this country. Tell me about this, girl.
Yeah. Oh my. Well, to tell you a little bit about me or your audience a little bit about me, what I do is I'm the founder and leader here at the Stress Less Company. And what I do is I work with business owners and leaders who struggle with leaving work at work. So whether it's the physical tasks or the racing thoughts about them, and I support them in experiencing more peace and freedom, basically so they can get out of their own way and work less while making more.
Wow. And you specifically work with business owners on this, like you're not working with any like C-suite executives or anything like that too?
Business owners and leaders, although I do have business owners have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, me too. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Like 1976 when my father got fired from a job again, I was like, that's it. I'm never letting a company control me. Went through a few marriages, figuring that out, things like that. Or I didn't leave the work at work. I brought it home. Yeah, I get it. So, how long have you been doing this now?
So we are going, I believe it's on our 6th year. It might be our 5th year. I'd have to go back and do the math. But
who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting at this point?
But it's an interesting, and you're fairly young. All right. You look like you're younger than my daughter. And I'm like, at 29, 27, you're under 30, right?
Just right? Barely.
Under 30. How do you not get worried about stress in life? I wasn't stressed about nothing when I was 30.
That's interesting. So I think that everybody has a different experience of life, but my experience that led me to this line of work was fairly unique and based in going through a lot of stress when I was about 12 years old. So I guess trigger warning to give you context. I mean, it was pretty intense. When I was 12 years old, my mom ended up being shot 3 times by an ex-boyfriend. Her current boyfriend had been murdered by that guy. I was in the house. While I didn't see anything, I ended up, triggered. I ended up with PTSD, stress, overwhelm, jumpiness. I mean, you name it. And so I went through my teenage years, early adulthood, really struggling with stress and PTSD and mental health issues before. And it took me more than 10 years to finally figure out what worked.
That's stuff that no kid should have to deal with. In my opinion, no kid should have to deal with it. I did everything I could protect my own kids from this. So yeah.
Totally.
Wow.
So you asked that question, like how the heck are you doing this at such a young age? And it's because I experienced stress at such a deep level at such a young age. And also the depths of despair, if you will, of like feeling like I tried everything and none of it was working. And I knew what that was like to know, like, there's no other options, or so it felt at the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's interesting because, when I was 21 through 29, I found ways to deal with the stress if I had it. All right. And that was the bottle. Let's face it. All right. I grew up in an alcoholic family. I don't drink to get drunk anymore, but like I remember my youth, I was 33 years of age. There was a point I was spending $600 to $800 a weekend at the bar. And I mean, that's a alcohol problem.
Consumption. Yeah. That is consumption. Yeah. I think that's really common for folks, especially in their early 20s. That is because we're not taught how to handle stress when we're young. Like it's just not part of our education system. It's
No.
a
Well,
lot
there's
of
a
our
lot of things that are not
families.
in our education system that I think like this needs to be put in the freaking schools, in my opinion. Yeah.
Exactly. And it doesn't help that many of us were raised in families where it's like, oh, you're crying, like pick yourself up by the bootstraps. We don't have time for that. Or like, oh, you're crying, I'll give you something to cry about, So we were
Well, that was my
taught.
dad. Hey, wait a minute. Did you know my dad?
So many of our parents were like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be taught for sure.
It is. It is. So, I mean, but so then you were one of these kids, then basically you sought like, how do I self-help myself, right? Not how do I self-medicate, but how do I help myself? And that's where you found this.
Yeah. You could say that as like a long story short. For the first few years up until my early adulthood, so my teenage years, I really didn't open up and express what was going on in my life with much of anybody. So it was a lot of kind of isolation, self-induced isolation. And then when I finally started opening up with people, I would say things like, hey, I'm feeling a little stressed, or I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. And I would ask people for advice. And it was basically like clockwork. I got the same 5 or so responses every time. Have you tried therapy? Have you tried yoga, meditation, changing your diet, hitting the gym? And my response at that point was like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I haven't been living under a rock. Give me a freaking break. And it's funny, like I would go back to them sometimes, not always. I know my audience, but some of them I would go back to and I'd say, hey, like, meditation just isn't working for me, or whatever it was at that particular time. And again, like clockwork, I would get the same response again, like, oh, well, the fact that you can't meditate tells me that you need to meditate more. Or like, you haven't found the right yoga teacher, like, or you're not doing it right. And so luckily I was a pretty resilient person. I continued to do those things because I was impressionable at that age. But I also was pretty resilient and kept exploring. And that's where the self-help and the self-exploration really came in, because I wasn't willing to accept the misery as status quo.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but then you went into teaching it and helping others with this. Right. Was this like a self-developed thing? And then you go, okay, now I'm going to teach this to others. Or did someone come up to you one day and go, hey, you're doing much better. How do you do that?
Well, my journey was winding, to say the least. I feel like every entrepreneur, we have like our high level story and then the winding story. Mine was, I could tell either one. But I will say that when I finally figured out what worked for me, I threw a nice big temper tantrum because I was pissed that no one was talking about it. And then once I was done throwing my temper tantrum, I realized that I was supposed to be the one that was talking about it. And so thus kind of started my journey of sharing through a variety of different ways what my journey has been, or what was at the time.
Yeah. Wow. And for me, like I never planned on getting into the speaking realm or helping people. It was, it just, I cleaned Zig Ziglar's car, and Zig's like, Tim, you should be a speaker. And I'm like, me? Who's going to listen to me? Right? Type deal. But like, I had that great guidance because I knew Zig personally, right? Did you have somebody person in your life say, hey, listen, let me guide you. You need to be telling the world about this.
I think that's such an interesting question that I actually haven't thought about very often. When it came to starting my business, I was very much so my own advocate. And when I started, so what I will say is that one of the solutions that really worked to help me manage my energy or manage my stress response was creating art. And so as part of the exploration of creating art, I thought maybe that was my life purpose for a while. And so I did art shows and, had stuff in galleries, and I had to have an artist statement, and I had to speak about my art, and I would share my story. And it was kind of in that context that people started to notice. They were like, wait a second, what do you mean? Like, it was a different lens than just, what you hear about with art therapy or with regular therapy or regular coaching. It was like a whole new lens, because I wasn't niching in some ways. I was looking at the fact that there was no one size fits all. But I will say that when I got very clear that I didn't want to be part of the 9 to 5 world anymore, I did end up hiring a variety of mentors and meeting, I mean, incredible people making crazy amounts of money and realized like that was really the momentum. That was what set me off saying, oh, this can actually be a movement. Like
Yes.
we can actually eradicate suffering by just changing one person's life. That person can change other people's lives. And then, and you know,
Exactly.
it just creates a ripple effect.
Of course, yeah. I've always believed that, right? That I got to start with changing me, all right, and then just help
Mm-hmm.
one other person, and it grows from there, right?
Yep.
And I've always believed in that. It's something I've always carried since I was your age. Really, I have always carried that around with me, and it's good to see, other people doing it. I carried it with me, but then I went to clean cars for a living. I didn't think like, yeah, go help other people. Now that you help yourself, go help other people. No, I went to clean cars instead. But anyway, I had to take bad sidetracks because I didn't believe in myself, and that was a whole
Yeah.
nother puzzle I had to deal with. So
Well, to respond to that though, like I remember a professor when I was in college sharing. He shared it sticks to me to this day. Now I'm probably going to butcher his quote, but he said, if you only help one person in your entire lifetime, and that one person is you've done a grand job.
yeah,
And because you become that, like even if you're not teaching or on stage or at the front of the room, you are living by example and therefore showing other people that there's hope, that there's another way to do things. Like you don't have to become an alcoholic and continue your generational pattern. You don't have to do X, Y, and Z. There's another way.
yeah. Well, one of my favorite. Everybody loves their favorite Zig quote is the common one. My favorite quote that Zig Ziglar told me, knowing him personally, was about the church we went to, and he used to say this thing about going to church. If you're afraid to go to church because you think there's too many hypocrites there, we got room for one more. You can come join us. He was like, we're all hypocrites at some area. He said to me, we're all hypocrites at some area in our life, Tim. Get over it. And I'm like, never thought about that, right? Because it's always those oddball things that would teach me. It's not like you saying I didn't get the yoga. For me, all right, it was rock and roll music.
Yep.
All right. It was my first brand was called Rocker Life Coach, right? And I was like, I had to listen to things like ACDCs, you know what I mean? Weird drums that I wanted. That's what motivated me.
Yeah.
Meditation. For me, meditation was sit at coffee without an electronic device and enjoy my coffee at Starbucks, staring into space for 10 minutes. Now, I know that's not meditation, but that's what it was to me. And like so many people, I think, want to define these things. Have you become, and your ways that you're teaching people, are they like, let me show you the same guide everybody else is doing? Or are you going, no, wait a minute. Let's use the whole universe here to find solutions.
Yeah. So I have this thing called the stress less method. It's a 5-step system that all of my clients work through. Now, what's really unique about it is it's basically just, it's like the infrastructure of our transportation. Now, stick with me for a second. So we've got roads and rivers and skyways and I'm missing pathways. I mean, we have so many ways in which we can travel. And so what the system is it's that infrastructure. And then what I support my clients with is choosing the appropriate vehicle or the appropriate way to move within the infrastructure to figure out what works for them. So that it doesn't really matter what it is that they do, as long as the end goal is emotional freedom or a beautiful state of mind more times than not. So to give you an example, the first step of the stress less method is to manage your energy. In other words, manage your nervous system or your stress response. And the infrastructure, or one piece of the infrastructure, looks like this thing called creative stress reduction. And creative stress reduction is any activity that gets us out of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn and gets us into rest and digest. Mm-hmm. So it can be anything. I mean, it could be your traditional stuff like yoga and meditation, but it could also be rock and roll. It could also be playing with your dog. It could be going on a walk. It could be, the world is your oyster. Yeah. We have the end goal of, as long as it activates that part of your nervous system, rest and digest, but it doesn't matter how you get there. And so I create the context for them to figure out, without getting overwhelmed, what it is that they need to do uniquely. And by the way, it's not just one thing. You
Well,
got a list.
yeah, that is the key I found in almost everything I do is there's no one way to do things. And one of my favorite mentors of mine is James Malinchak, who's a speaker coach. I don't know if you know James. James always people used to ask him, James, how do you get 700 people at your conferences? Is there one secret that you do? And he said, no, I can't tell you one way to get 700 people in the room, but I can tell you 700 ways to get one person in the room. And he said, when you go looking at life that way, you will have a lot better perspective when you start going, okay, there's not just one way. Let's do a ton of different ways and put them all together and work. And I assume that's what you've got coming with people because everybody's different. I'm different than the next person. And how to heal my stress, I guess, is probably going to be different than, say, a lady who's a banker in your town.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are foundational principles like, hey, we each have this thing called an autonomic nervous system. There's two parts. There's the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. Mm-hmm. We're humans. We all have this physiological thing in our body. And for you to get from the sympathetic, which is fight, flight, freeze, to the parasympathetic, rest and digest, is going to be so different from the banker in my town, right? Totally different because it depends on your personality, your background, your history, what you enjoy, what makes you feel cozy or safe or comfortable. I mean, it's as unique as your fingerprint.
Yeah. Now, one of the most unique ones that made me realize this once was, I don't know if you know Rhonda Britton. Do you know Rhonda?
No.
Okay, Rhonda Britton. I think Oprah labeled her, like, we're talking like 20 years ago. Oprah labeled her as America's life coach, like 20 years ago. Like, this is not like new, but she's still in the game. Rhonda, I heard her tell her story the first time I ever heard it, and it hit me because she talked about how she was dealing with things in life and she couldn't find the answer. So she tried to kill herself. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And she said, once you try that 3 times, they put you under mental observation.
Yeah.
And she said, I learned I suck at killing myself, so I'm stuck living. So I might as well figure out something. And everybody else's plan ain't working, so I got to come up with one. Mm-hmm. And she come up with like little exercises she did herself to mentally train herself. And it wasn't until she was at a church event or a town event, and one of the ladies said to her, Rhonda, you seem like you're doing awesome. What's changed? All right. And she was like embarrassed. Well, I do these funky little exercises that help me. And the lady goes, can you teach me those exercises? Mm-hmm. Right. Like, that's when we realized, like, oh crap, maybe other people could use what I'm doing.
Yep.
And I think that was probably like where you're at.
Totally. It's interesting too, because I love that example because when we talk about like trying to commit suicide too, oftentimes when I'm in, now this, by the way, I'm not a licensed psychiatrist or therapist, and I want to be very clear about that, but
yeah, we have to have those disclaimers up there. Yeah, we've got them.
Yeah, there you go. But oftentimes when I've had conversations with clients who have worked the traditional therapy or psychiatrist circuit, if you will, trying to get support, what I've noticed is that it's really about discomfort resilience. Now, I can't take credit for that. That's a word Heather Dominic uses. You can Google her later. But discomfort resilience, that's oftentimes what I've noticed. And I'd be curious to hear about other people's experiences. But it's like we don't try to commit suicide because we actually want to die. We try to commit suicide because we can't take the discomfort, the pain, the misery anymore. And that feels like a solution to end the misery. Yeah. So if we were presented, so this kind of goes to the depths of my own despair. Now, I've never kind of been down into that even deeper darkness, but I've been in pretty dark places. And for me, having the kind of wherewithal or the perspective to say, wait a second, what can I do to get rid of this misery, to use it in my favor, to, do something to move it through rather than have it stuck within me. And that was, I think, some of the most powerful pieces of my work, because I realized there were more options.
Well, I dealt with it too, Carlee, is I remember, now I have epilepsy and I take a medication and very few side effects because it's an old one. Very few side effects I have. One of them is depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that in the early 2000s. I learned that and I learned, okay, I've got this. My doctor wanted to put me on another medication for depression. I'm like, no. I'm not taking a medication to deal with the side effect from the first medication. I'm sorry. That's a never ending road, not going
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But a movie came out that made me go, okay, I can look into this. And that was that movie that was called A Beautiful Mind. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
All
I
right.
don't
And that,
remember much of the plot line.
yeah,
But-
but for me, it was like he dealt with crap in his life, and he's like, no, I'm not going to take the medication.
Mhm.
I'm going to find a way to solve this myself by
Yeah.
mind control. All right. And they even show towards the end of the movie, like, are you still having these illusions? And they show him looking, yep, they're still there. I've just learned to put them in their place. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, I can control this. And I think that's where we learn, you know what I mean? Maybe your clients the same way, is where they learn, wait a minute, if anybody can take control of Tim's life, it's Tim.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you're
Yeah.
probably helping people do the same thing.
Yeah. And I think there's always the asterisk there, right? Like there's a time and a place for medication.
Mhm.
And there's no, again, like, yeah, just like you're saying, like there's no one else that's going to know you better than you.
No.
Now, I would say like an additional asterisk on that is that we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So if we feel like if we don't know that there are other options, of course it's going to feel really scary or even more stressful or depressing or whatever that emotion is. That emotion is probably going to get stronger because we feel trapped.
Yeah.
And so that's where, you know, listening to podcasts like this or shows like this, or hiring a coach, or just exposing yourself in general to maybe new people is going to enable us to expand that, so that we do then have a choice versus not seeing the options.
I know. And just in my life, you know, not in personal, but in business, like everybody looks at me and they go, well, Tim, you're this great business guy. I just hired another business coach for like investments I'm doing. And everybody's like, but you're so good at it. Why'd you have to hire a coach? Because I want to get better at it. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't want epilepsy to control my life. So I went to find the right doctors to heal me from it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of us, we lose that concept that like the right coach can carry you past something. And I think we get caught up in America sometimes on the idea of, well, you know, I'm good now. Yeah, but don't let good keep you from being great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the low grade level of suffering. That's like the status quo. Well, this is just how life is. I think we oftentimes just accept it as like, well, this, hey, or we compare. We're like, well, I'm not starving. I'm not hungry. I haven't experienced this awful thing. So I shouldn't feel like what I'm feeling. And one of our basic human needs, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is self-actualization, the desire to become the best that we can be.
That's right.
And so that's the place in which we, you know, whatever it looks like, whether it's hiring a coach, whether it's reading, whether it's just expanding your social circle. I mean, there's so many ways that you can become the best that you can be, but it's a basic human need. Now, it's hard to do that when your other basic human needs aren't being met, right? Like your, you know, food, water, clean air, shelter, money, safety, resources, love and belonging. I mean, I could go on.
But, well, yeah. I was like, well, have you ever lived in, you know, had to live in your car because you can't pay your bills?
Personally, I have not, but I have slept in a car and it is awful. Just awful.
Yeah, I lived in my car for a couple of years after I sold my car wash business. I went bankrupt in 2 years and I lived in my car and finally had a friend give me a couch. And, you know, I get it. Like everybody goes, well, you know, you got to take care of, you deserve. And I'm like, right now, I just like would wish I deserved a bed. I'll take a couch at this point, a sleeping bag, as opposed to a back seat of Ford Taurus station wagon. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. You know, totally. We can't, I think that's the thing about American culture. I don't know about other parts of the world, but we often get so caught up in this like glamorous version of success, but we forget that there are baby steps that need to happen for us to experience what we want. A lot of times people will say, well, I just want to make 6 figures. I really need 6 figures. And And when we ask them, okay, well, forget the money for a second. What is it that you want?
Yeah.
And they list off all the things, and maybe some of it's associated with money, maybe some of it isn't. And you're looking at like a $50,000 a year or less salary to get all those things. Or, whatever that looks like. But
Yeah, I know.
basic human needs.
And Carlee, I don't tell people like, I've lived in the cardboard box and I've lived in the mansion. I ain't afraid to go to either one. We're sitting in a seminar for this new coaching program that I got like just 3 weeks ago. My wife went with me, and we're sitting there, and then like guys like, well, write down what you want. And she's writing down, well, I want a house with a music room and all that. And she turns to me, so what do you want? I says, I want to buy you a brand new car next year, and I want to buy you a brand new house next year. She goes, we can get that. I said, I know we can. I want to. I want to buy it for you. That's my dream now. And she goes, whoa. I says, for me to be able to go out and just come home one day and go, oh, by the way, honey, here's your new car. Do you like it? If you don't, I'll trade it and get you a different one.
Yeah.
That's power, because as opposed to we both have to go, we both have to sign the, all that credit stuff and take time out of our day. That was a huge thing to me. Most people are looking at, like you said, what they want. Well, what really matters? To get the new car? Like, let's face it, my wife wants a Honda. I could work as a teacher and afford a Honda.
Yeah.
It's what you said. It's not a big deal. And I do remember the first year in my business, I was working with my assistants, and I said one time, oh, we're going to make 6 figures this year. This was like April or May of the year, right?
Yeah. You're like almost halfway through. All right, Tim.
Yeah. Wait a minute. No. What's funny is the person who was doing my books at the time turns to me and goes, Tim, we passed that about 2 months ago.
Oh, shit.
Oh, okay. Because I till this day, I know what's in my business accounts. I don't know what's in my personal account at all. I don't focus on what's in my bank. I just work. Right? And you would think that my world would be stressed out and be one of those people. No, I found the areas that make me work. And one of the areas that stresses me out is if I know there's only $50 in the bank account, that will stress me. But if I work not knowing how much is in the bank account, I'll work 5 times as hard. I don't know why. You as the expert, tell me how that's with me.
Well, I mean, I'm an expert in stress. So, I mean, it is intrinsically stressful to not have your basic human needs met. And so that is a coping response to avoid. Now, it sounds like for you, Tim, that it's actually like deep down that your needs are met because you've hired professionals to make sure that that's the case. And so it becomes more about self-actualization. How can I become the best I can be? And it's more purpose driven. But it's choosing to work because you want to and you love to versus because you have to. And that's a very different, situation to be in.
Yeah. Well, there's an area I'd like to take the conversation to a little bit. All right. And I assume this is somewhat with you because of the fact of what you are doing. Me, my company, Simple Easy Marketing, and Blog and Video Con are all mission driven. I have a mission. My mission is to actually create 10,000 people who create content using blogs, vlogs, podcasts, help them get an audience of 10,000 and then make 10,000 a month. That is my mission. It is written on the wall over here, right? So that drives me every day. Not can I get the Ferrari, not can I get the Lamborghini. I assume because that's about helping people. And I assume that's what yours is, helping people. The money is just a side feature to that.
Yeah. I think the money is actually an energetic exchange to support the end goal. And so for me, it's like, I'm not even joking when I'm looking at like eradicating suffering and healing on a global basis. Like that is my why, and doing it together. Like I'm not the guru. I'm not the man on the mountain. I want to do this alongside because I'm on my journey too.
Yeah.
And so for me, these are so like the energetic exchange of money and this deep mission and this deep work is so intertwined because we live in a capitalist society, whether we like it or not. And money is energy and money is commitment to showing up and doing the work to create the results you want, whether it's, getting better at investing, whether it's experiencing emotional freedom, whether it's building your business. I mean, whatever your weight loss, any goal, there's power in that energetic exchange.
Well, let me ask you this then. All right, as you talk about that with
Yeah.
the money, because you brought up an interesting point in what you were saying there, and I'm huge on this. Is money will get you to motivate to do it. All right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm huge on like I don't let people attend my events for free anymore because there's something about, and it's not like my virtual events. It's a ticket they buy that gives them lifetime access, but that ticket gives 50% of the money to a charity because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing it for the making the money on the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't put the money up, they don't show up. And are you
Mm-hmm.
finding that with your clients that, yeah, I want this help. How bad do you want it? Are you willing to invest something? Are you willing to give up something to get it? You know what I mean? In my
Yeah.
case, I was willing to sell my prized motorcycle to hire my first business coach. And I'm
Yeah.
talking like something I dreamed about getting for 20 years. I
Mm-hmm.
finally got it and I couldn't afford to hire a business coach for my business. And I called my wife and I said, take the bike to the wholesaler and get rid of it before I get home.
Mm.
I'm hiring this coach because this is what I need.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
dealing with people on that level of getting them to go, okay, I realize you want this, but here's what you're going to have to do. First step, pay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, first step, get the call on the calendar. First step, apply to even talk to me. First
Yeah.
step, I mean, there's levels of energetic exchange. You have to really, because here's the thing, emotional freedom is not, a trophy, like a participation award. Like it's not.
I
It
thought you were
takes
going to say emotional freedom isn't free; it costs. But
it's yeah, you don't get, I mean, in some ways it does have a cost, and the
yeah,
cost is your time, your energy, your focus, and sometimes your money.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um and actually I might even say always your money, because your relationship with money can
Yeah,
impact your
yeah.
emotional freedom.
It's
So
almost always it's time, but
mhm.
sometimes there's money involved. Yeah, but in my opinion. But go ahead.
Yeah. So the commitment there, like I'm working with people that are committed, and that's
Mm-hmm,
what we're looking for. I
mm-hmm,
mean, to hop on a discovery call with me, to try to get to the root, just the first call to get to the root of why you're exhausted, overworked,
mm-hmm.
tired, stressed, whatever. You have to put the energy in to apply. And then you have to put the energy in to show up to that call. If you're accepted, then you have to put in the energy to, see that process through completion. You have to put in and you want to continue the work, you have to put in the energetic investment, financially, energetically, time wise, you name it. Because um, it is, for me, like my coaching containers are at least a year,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because this is not fool's game.
Oh, wait a minute. This isn't quick. This isn't get rich quick. I just pressed the button and I'm healed, right? Oh,
I don't sell, I don't offer those 3 month, 6 month packages
yeah,
or
yeah,
one-off sessions, because I want to see you get results.
yes. And it does take time to get results. Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
oh, and I get that because in mine, like I'm in internet marketing. In internet marketing, all right. I'm sorry, it's not a 1 month, 3 month game. It's a year to 2 years, and
Hmm.
that's what I did with mine. Same thing, but I can see it even more in yours
Yeah.
because it took me. I'm 55. It took me 55 years to screw the head up. It's going to take me some
Yeah.
time to unscrew 55 years.
Yes.
And I get that's where you're coming from because that's almost what you're dealing with, right? Am I
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And also, so let's say you work through the stress less method,
Mm-hmm.
and you can find more on that website. That's kind of scrolling at the bottom about it. But let's say you work through it, you get to step 5, which is embrace grace.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's the point where you've removed unnecessary stressors. You have the tools in your tool belt. You're in a beautiful state of mind more times than not. And it's at that point you realize that you're not perfect, nor are you meant to be perfect. You're not broken, and you're not meant to be fixed either, right? It's
Yeah.
at that point where you realize that as you move through life, a stressor, a trigger, a limiting belief, something that's going to rock your emotional freedom is going to come up. A global pandemic is going to show itself, and you're going to have to be in maintenance mode. You're going to have to say, I have this tool. Let me implement it. Let me do the work to experience this for the long haul. And that's why many of my clients, almost all of my clients, end up continuing their work for me for years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I have some clients who've been with me for more than 4 years out of my 5-6 years in business, right? Because it's a lifelong journey. Even if you are feeling that emotional freedom, it's maintenance mode stuff. Oh, there's always the next level of healing.
Well, and that's it. I actually was on a call today with one of my internet marketing coaches, and he's always believed in, all right, just because you provided a solution doesn't mean it's the end of the game. He says there's always another problem that comes up. And he says every solution creates and brings root to new problems. So you've got to research down the road in what you do in business because, for instance, the child, all right, who grows out of first grade, guess what? Now he's got to go to second grade, and he's got to go to third grade. Right? He's like, and then he's got to be a teenager, and yeah, life happens, and that's just the way life goes. And I was like, when I looked at that perspective, going, okay, I got to get in the business of helping people. That's it. All right, I help people with internet marketing. You help people stress less.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I think, and I would even take it from a perspective of like, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to go to third grade. I mean, maybe someone will come after your parents, but you don't actually have to do anything. But it is a basic human need to become and work towards being the best version of yourself. And my guess is that you won't experience that true sense, that true beautiful state of mind unless you are doing that.
Yeah.
It's part of what makes us such interesting creatures and such productive creatures is that we're always striving. We're always moving.
Yeah. I've always said you don't need a life coach. However, sometimes a life coach can help you be better. But you don't need one, right?
Life will show you the lessons, let me tell you.
and like I actually have a book outlined that because I'm not a life coach, but I outlined this book because I was at a conference and the idea came to my mind. So I just took out my note paper and wrote it down and right. And it's the title I have for it is You Don't Need a Life Coach, How to Fix Your Own Damn Life in 90 Days. Like, but that gave me the concept down is people come to me and go, well, I don't need a coach. Well, no, you don't. I don't need a coach to help me with investments, but I hired one because I want to be better at it. And that's what we realize is coaching, consulting, you helping people with stress less. I'm sure they can figure it out on their own, but I'll bet they can get done faster with you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, for me, in my story, it took me more than 10 years of struggling and like exploring. And with my clients, they're experiencing it in a tenth of the time. Right. I mean, even less than that in some cases. And
well, that's the purpose. Take what you went through and save someone else the time. Because that is the one commodity in this world we don't get back. Exactly. So, well, I got a couple of important questions I want to ask you before we go towards the end here. And one of them is, when I was 21 years old, I had a gentleman that I worked for in Massachusetts as a part-time job who gave me job advice that turned out to be life advice. Okay. That advice was, I was working at a gas station part-time, and he said, Tim, I want you to run this shift of yours like you own this company. From 4 p.m. to 12 p.m. at night, you own the company. Pretend like it, and you will never make a bad decision. So that helped me take ownership of everything I do in my life. Did someone give you advice along the way that, like, it started out as a job advice, but it came life advice or something life to live by?
What I will say is coming to my mind is a more cliche thing that we've heard a lot, all of us, I'm sure, but do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And at the time when I had first heard that, I thought, yeah, okay, come on. There's still hard work to be done. But I think as I've gone through my life, my short life, is that there really is actually an ROI of happiness. And we oftentimes create a separation between work and personal. And in fact, they're so intertwined.
Yes, they are. Yeah. So, my next question, and this comes because in August of this year, I interviewed a very, very close friend of mine who passed away shortly afterwards from COVID. And while I hope that never happens to you, I really do. I hope this question is like way in the future, like 90 years from now. But 90 years from now, someone sees this interview. All right. They found it because you passed away. What is some advice you would give them? Because they're listening to this, seeking to get one more bit of advice from you.
Ooh, that's such a good and powerful question. I would say, goodness, it's so hard to select just one and not ramble in response to that question.
Hey, we got some time, so it's okay.
Okay. Well, I think that I'm going to approach this question from a different perspective.
Mhm.
And the different perspective is that if I were, what would I say to my younger self as a 100-year-old, let's say?
Yeah.
I would say that you're not crazy, that it's okay to do things differently, and don't work so goddamn hard.
I love the way you are, girl. I'm just saying, you're just so cool.
Thanks.
So, and we did have a discussion about this beforehand, so we can say certain things like, yes, just let it all hang out on this show. So, well, it's good advice, and I like that perspective about it, because that is all right. So often we're always seeking one more piece of advice and not realizing it's usually us that has the advice from the future. And if I could go back and tell 21-year-old Tim a lot of things, I would tell you not to spend $600 a weekend at a bar. Just saying.
Yeah. Yep. There are other ways. 100%.
Other ways to get help with that. So,
Yeah.
well, Carlee, it's been great getting to know you live on air today. All right. I want to make sure people who listen in today's show, both today live, the recording, that they can connect with you. All right. Maybe even book a call with you. Tell us the website that's the best place to reach you.
So you're going to go to stresslessco.com.
I love that. It's just the name of the company, Stress Less Co.
Easy peasy.
What a concept, huh? My first
Great marketing. Who thought?
I know, marketing. Yeah, my first coach told me, get a domain name that tells everybody who you are, right? And at the time, timgillette.com was taken and I couldn't get it. Oh. So I okay, what else? So I look at, and that's why I bought Rocker Life Coach. And I'm like, I thought I found the greatest thing in the world, all right? Until my business coach sat down and said, Tim, you're a business coach trying to tell everybody you're a life coach and you're making no money, right? Yeah. I wonder why I hired that coach, because he'd describe me in a matter of 10 minutes. I mean, he's one of my best friends today, but anyway. Well, it's been great having you on the show, all right? And I hope people do go check out with you. But before you go, I play a game with all of my guests, all right? This or that questions. I have 7 envelopes. You pick 3, and we're going to ask you the questions out of the envelopes. 1 through 7. Right. Pick your numbers.
I'm going to go with, I want to reach out and virtually grab it. I'm going to go with 3. And I have 2 more, you said?
2 more, yeah.
2 more. I'm just going to stick with my goofiness. I'm going to go with 7.
2 of my favorite numbers, by the way.
They're such good numbers.
I know they are.
All right, I'm not going to pick this one by hand. I'm going to go with 1.
Go with 1. Okay. So these ones here, you will never know what's in these ones.
Uh-oh. It's going to keep me up at night.
I know. It's funny you say that, because I was a Dale Earnhardt fan. That's why number 3. And it's actually one of his, I moved it for put the Christmas tree up this year. But number 3 is, and number 7, I'm Christian, so it's kind of a number 7's a Christian-y number. Anyway.
Oh.
Yeah. Envelope number 3.
Oh, no.
Question number 1. I haven't had this one in a while. And I don't know whether it's you wear them or you prefer to see someone else wear them. But
I've heard this question.
Boxers or briefs?
Boxers or briefs? Briefs all the way. Briefs all the way.
I had a guy from I met from one of the coaching groups that I knew in California, that he was on here, and we had a 20-minute discussion at the end of the podcast about underwear we've worn over the years. And I'm like, only I could have a business podcast and have a discussion with another guy about underwear. Yeah. Anyway.
Love it.
Question number 2 in this envelope is Coke or Pepsi?
Oh, that's a debate in my family.
I know. And I say that as a guy who moved to Texas and gave up on both.
Oh, no. Okay. So actually support small businesses. Do your thing. But I would say personally, Coke. Now, if you spoke to my late grandma, she's probably rolling over in her grave right now, because Pepsi, it was a problem if someone else drank Coke. She loved Pepsi in a mug, specifically a clear, tall mug with ice and a straw that bended. Favorite drink.
Yeah. I always like, well, Coke. Now as I get older, I like the finding the real sugar ones. So I like real sugar Coke and real sugar
Same.
Dr. Pepper is what I like. And
Same.
like being a Texan now, Dr.
Mm.
Pepper, I'm sorry, it's my favorite drink.
Dr. Pepper. Do you know what's the brand that is like, it's all, they're like all organic. I don't know if they're organic, but they have the round logo with that's like every logo ever. But they're like all sugar. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Sometimes
oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, oh gosh.
I like that brand. Whatever that brand is.
They have like one of their sodas is green apple.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of the name of the brand now. I don't know why.
Well, we'll come back to everybody.
Yeah,
let you know
we'll
later.
get it. So question number 3. Going on a trip, hotel or camping?
Hotel.
Yeah. My wife wants to stay in a tent. My idea of camping is a 4-star hotel.
I do love nature. I really, really love nature. So ideally a hotel where I can walk in the nature, but still sleep in a bed and shower and do all the good stuff.
Well, no, I spent years with the motorcycle driving around the country, and I would stay at campsites that actually had the cabin. And I would rent the cabin. So like I had a bed to sleep on at night. All right. I can still be out in nature type things. That's what I always went for. So yeah.
Well, fun fact about me, my very first job was at a Yogi Bear campground, and I cleaned those cabins for my very first job. The cabins and the bathhouses. Talk about a nasty job. The bathhouses specifically.
Yeah. Anyway, envelope number 7. Question number 1 is, I'm hoping you know this one. Who was the better lead singer of Van Halen, David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar?
I gotta opt out.
I knew it. She doesn't know who Sammy are. You don't even know who Van Halen is.
I've heard, but yeah.
You see, there's a reason that question's in there. That is my favorite band.
And I feel like I've just insulted your favorite band by not knowing them well enough.
That's all right. You got a chance to redeem yourself on this next question.
Okay.
All right. Which is the better coffee, Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks?
Neither. I don't drink coffee.
No. There was a place on Market Street when my wife and I were there 2015 on Market Street. We found this beautiful little cafe. And I'll bet you it's not even there anymore. And then we later found out there was a movie made where they used it in Philadelphia. And I can't remember the cross street. I'm off of Market.
I know there was one coffee shop that I really loved. I also don't remember the name. And they recently closed. They closed a few months before the pandemic started, actually. But yeah, I'm a tea drinker and herbal teas. I love me a good like herbal tea.
I make in the summertime. I make my own. I brew my own tea, green tea, and I make a green tea lemonade with it, and that's what I drink all summer long. Yeah, and it's like, wait a minute, and I make it in mason jars, right? So I take my mason jars to a conference I'm at one time, and I bring my mason jar out and pouring my iced tea, and my coach who's at the thing, he goes, Tim, it's not wise to bring your moonshine.
I know. I saw that coming.
I would never bring my moonshine out in public.
Yeah.
Yes, I have moonshine. My grandfather made it in Poconos when I was a kid. So anyway.
I love it. I love it. So now everyone's going to want that recipe in the show notes. Just calling you out. But yeah, I also grew up with a family who drank a lot. And so I had one apple pie moonshine recipe that is just killer. It's like dangerous. You can't taste the alcohol. And then I'd recently at Thanksgiving, my cousin brought a root beer moonshine. Also dangerous, also delicious. So we'll have to connect off the air.
We are going to be connecting now.
Yeah.
Question number 3 in this one here is, which did you prefer more, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, I feel like I shouldn't have chose this envelope. So I just recently, like maybe a year and a half ago, started watching Star Wars. I've never seen Star Trek. So, and the Star Wars thing came about because all of my friends were horrified that I had never seen it. So as of right now, I will have to go with Star Wars, but that's only by default because I've never seen Star Trek.
I never seen Star Wars till I was almost 40 years old.
Oh, good.
I love it now. Yeah. But I was 40 before I seen it. And let's face it, I was like of age to go to the movie theater when it came out. Like I'm a little older. Yeah.
Why weren't you there? Come on.
Had better things to do. Yeah. Last envelope, number 1 envelope, and our questions. Oh, this one here, I'm pretty sure you got this one here, a good one. In the car nowadays, do you listen to podcast or music?
Well, I have, speaking of Hondas from earlier, I have a Honda Civic that's from 2005 because I love me no car payment. And so I listen to the radio because I do not have Bluetooth to listen to a podcast.
No, don't feel bad. Like, I've been a truck guy or motorcycle guy my whole life. My motorcycle had a way to connect my iPod to it.
What? Oh, so you're just rubbing it in right now.
I know. But I had I just this year I traded in my truck, the last big truck I've had. And I was always been like a diesel truck. My dad was a diesel mechanic and teacher. And I traded my truck in and I realized to get a new one was going to be like $80,000. And I'm like, there ain't no way I'm paying $80,000 for a car. No, I don't care how rich you think I is. I ain't buying that, right? So I went to the Mercedes dealer and traded it in on a Mercedes SUV that was half the price of a Dodge truck.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've been eyeing up a Toyota Tacoma for a couple of years now. I love their, of course, I feel like this is a typical woman thing to say, but I love the paint colors. The mud brown. I'm like, I need that in my life, but I'm not paying. I love having the financial freedom. I don't want to go into debt. So until I have I'm building my savings account, but once that's up, I'm gonna buy me a nice.
Carlee, I started leasing. I said, screw this, because every 4 years I was sick of the vehicle anyway and had problems. So I just lease now.
No.
But what my lease payment, all right, is like 1/3 of what my car payments used to be. That's why. So yeah.
See, I don't
have a maintenance problem because when it breaks down, I just take it to the dealer and get it fixed. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. I know quite a few people who lease. See, for me, I've had no car payment for so long. I just can't even imagine paying for anything other than gas and repairs every so often.
Yeah, that was me for a long time in my life. Once you hit 50, you're sick of working on them.
I'll touch base in 20 years. We'll see.
Next question here. All right, ought to be an interesting one now. For you as a lady, high heels or boots?
Boots.
Okay.
Easy peasy.
You realize I'm from Texas and what boots I'm talking about, right, girl?
Hey, I grew up in Maryland, just below the Mason-Dixon line. I got a little bit of that swing in my life.
Just a little bit into the South. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Last question. When you go to the movies, are you a popcorn or candy person?
Popcorn.
Yeah. Butter, salt, all that stuff.
Yeah. So I actually avoid both now because I'm lactose intolerant. But before I knew what was making me so sick, it was the popcorn slathered in butter and salt.
Yeah. We do popcorn, but we only do the salt now because of the between the butter and stuff was too much for us. And we just do salted, and we've gotten kettle corn, which it's got a sugary taste to it.
Oh, I love kettle corn.
But still, yeah, it's the butter is just the older you get, it weighs you down and just like, and I gotta hate that feeling afterwards.
Yeah, totally.
Well, it has been great getting to know you. It's been fun getting to know you today on the air. One more time, repeat the website for both our viewers as well as our listeners on the audio podcast.
All right. So you're going to go to stresslessco.com.
And do they have a way on the website that they can book a time with you or get a report or anything?
Yeah. So if you go to stresslessco.com/apply, you can apply for that complimentary discovery session. And then I'll be in touch with you within 24 to 48 business hours to either say, hey, here's some recommendations on where to go next if it's not me, or hey, let's hop on the phone.
Yep. I love it. Someone who takes action. So, well, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule today and actually sharing your stuff with my audience. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute just ball.
To you guys, the listener, I want to thank you guys for tuning in again today. Do me a favor, go check out Carlee Myers, all right, and stresslessco.com, as well as make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and where you get your podcast. I'm Tim Gillette, and I'll be back next week with another great guest. Have a great week, guys. Bye.